Who are some of the people who just love to do crime over and over? Let's find out. Starting with number 8. The Kingpin Was Arrested. Ronaldo Antuain Williamson rose to the peak of his career as a peddler of illegal substances in Alabama by being cautious. He didn't even visit his cartel connects in Mexico, even when they asked him to, because he was scared they would kidnap him, hurt him, or something else. But despite all his caution, Williamson's end was closer than he thought. One of his colleagues had joined forces with the police and was willing to inform. So, while Williamson was running from traps laid by the cartels across the border, he was walking right into one laid by the police. In the summer of 2019, Williamson had his home raided, and what they found wasn't surprising. He had a combined 285 grams of various forms of illegal substances, totaling roughly 75,000 doses he was planning on selling. The cachet of substances found at Williamson's house was so excessive, and his involvement was so extensive, that prosecutors got a rare kingpin designation for his prosecution. This meant that prosecutors could argue that Ronaldo ran a $1 million operation by himself, and taking him out of the market would be the equivalent of bringing down a kingpin. It also meant that if convicted, he faced an automatic life sentence in federal prison and without the possibility of parole. In most cases, such odds would turn the suspect into the biggest snitch ever. That's a lot of time to face down. But Ronaldo remained silent. Many of his associates were so scared that they didn't testify against him, and his case went to trial. At trial, the jury got to see pictures when Ronaldo held stacks of cash to his head and posed with expensive jewelry that he couldn't have owned through a regular business. They also learned that he owned a Dodge Charger Hellcat and a Cadillac Escalade. Ultimately, there was more than enough evidence to convince the jury, and Williamson was sentenced to life in prison plus 10 years for good measure. He was also ordered to pay $36 million in restitution as a penalty for moving all the illegal substances that were found in his home. We're sure he's going to work really hard to try and pay back that from prison. It was probably smart that everyone kept their mouths shut though, right? Otherwise, that life sentence would probably be over real quick. Number 7. Thief posed as a priest. Malin Rostas posed as a fake priest, Father Martin, and used that disguise to steal money from parishes around the country. Rostas' plan was simple. He would enter the church, speak to the presiding priest, and request to co-officiate Mass. He would strike up a conversation with the staff of the parish, and then claim he forgot something in the rectory. After he was given access, he would go through the rectory and steal all the money he could find. Rostas was first busted when he tried to steal from a parish in Los Angeles, but he was extradited to New York to face charges concerning a Bayside parish he had also stolen from. Of course, he had stolen from this parish using the same tactics. He walked in, told the in-house clergy that he wanted to officiate the Mass, and then stole $900 from the church coffers. Rostas was implicated in stealing an additional $2,300 from various other parishes before his final arrest. His criminal activity spanned multiple states, but he was ultimately apprehended in California. The arrest was facilitated by the identification of his vehicle, which matched the description associated with the thefts. At the time of his arrest, authorities discovered that he had an outstanding warrant for burglary in Pennsylvania, and he had previously pleaded guilty to a charge of receiving stolen property. Soon after his arrest, Rostas was extradited by New York cops to face justice for the multiple parishes he had stolen from. As of the release of this video, law enforcement is still investigating the extent of his crimes. We'd suggest that he start praying for forgiveness, but we're not sure how much that's going to help at this point. Number 6. Guy steals everything after claiming to be terminally ill. Christopher Lancop got in big trouble with the cops after he scammed his supposed lover out of $370,000. Lancop, who claimed to be a personal trainer, music artist, songwriter, life coach, baseball player, and mixed martial artist, also happened to be a prolific scammer, which isn't surprising at all since it sounds like he just started naming things he wanted to do when he was 5. Well, minus the life coach. He probably added that when he realized everything else was harder than he thought it would be. Still, that's a lot of fake jobs though, right? Apparently, Lancop had been telling his partner at the time that he was suffering from a terminal illness and needed money to pay his medical bills. So the woman gave him the cash he needed and kept giving and giving until it added to more than $250,000. When Lancop was satisfied that he'd gotten everything he needed from her, he fled the house they shared and took her car, cash, and jewelry. Unsurprisingly, this wasn't Lancop's first offense as a fraudster. Just a year year before this incident, he was ousted as a real slimy real estate agent. You see, Landcop was neither real, because he didn't even use his real name, nor was he an agent. He swindled multiple victims out of almost $40,000 by posing as an agent and renting units that weren't his to rent out to victims and collecting their deposits and rent. Our man has also been fingered in a lengthy probe concerning a family that he scammed out of more than $5,000 on 2 different occasions. He has since been arrested and has been charged with 7 counts of fraud related to the case where he scammed his partner and 14 counts of fraud related to the rental fraud. Number 5. This heartless woman stole from hospital patients. 56-year-old June Weatherman, who is, sadly, not a weatherman, stole repeatedly from hospital patients and didn't even show any remorse after she was caught. The crazy thing about Weatherman was that she committed her crimes without even being a hospital staff member. She would sneak into different hospitals, steal the cards and purses of bedridden women, and would use them to spend thousands of pounds on her personal needs. Weatherman clearly had a gift for this sort of crime too, because she was busted for committing the same crimes back in 2014. She had been arrested for stealing bank cards from elderly hospital patients and using their money for her personal expenses. She was sentenced to 7 years back then, but somehow got out early. But instead of using her newfound freedom to do something productive with her life, Weatherman decided to go right back to what took her to prison in the first place. But this time, she committed crimes all over the country and made good money from scamming older citizens in hospitals. She would lie and say that she was a nurse, then get access to the patient's rooms where she would swipe their purses and cards. Once, one of her victims ordered her to leave the room when she realized that her card had been stolen, while another discovered that her purse containing her cards and jewelry had also been stolen. A while later, one of the sons of her victims went through his mother's bank statements after she passed away and realized what had happened. Weatherman had scammed his mother too. Very soon, Weatherman was on the run from the police once again and was eventually caught and received a hefty 12 years in prison. Number 4. Las Vegas lady with 7 DUIs. Marian Reyes was arrested after she commented on a Facebook post by the police calling for her arrest. The post said that Reyes had cut off her ankle monitor and as such was nowhere to be found. However, Reyes definitely commented on the post and said she never cut off the monitor. Reyes said that the monitor was cut off by a police officer when she was arrested and that she was released without ever getting it put back on. The police then replied and asked her to turn herself in so that everything can be sorted out. And that's exactly what she ended up doing. So what got Reyes put in jail in the first place? Apparently, she had 7 DUI arrests over a span of 7 years, and her latest arrest led to the police giving her an ankle monitor, along with revoking her license. A judge also ordered that she spend 2 days in prison after she missed a court date. As part of her plea deal, her previous 3 DUI charges would be reduced to 1, and she would be allowed to enter a treatment program. However, if she gets arrested again, she'll have to spend time in jail. Reyes clearly has a problem with alcohol, so hopefully she gets help before she makes more bad decisions and tragedy strikes. After getting busted 7 times already, and who knows how many other times she drove drunk, it's just a matter of time before someone loses their life because of her. Number 3. Woman fakes disability. Patricia Rogers committed one of the crazier scams you've ever heard of when she swindled an insurance company out of over £500,000 for a civil claim after she said that a car collision left her crippled. As it turns out, Patricia wasn't crippled at all, and just 3 years later she appeared on TV, was running around without the aid of crutches. This is such a crazy scam because she might have gotten away with it all if she hadn't appeared on TV to participate in a show that required a lot of standing and walking. Since she didn't use crutches, it was clear that something was up and the insurance company set out to investigate. Back in 2014, Patricia made a claim for around £492,000 after she was involved in a car accident with one of the firm's policyholders. In her complaint, she said that the collision had caused a severe back problem, which meant that she was effectively crippled for life and wouldn't be able to walk without support. Then, in 2021, the insurance company revisited her claim and found multiple inconsistencies in the medical file file she had submitted. Further investigations found that Patricia was walking unaided in her home and could even walk her dogs without needing a cane. Then they uncovered footage of Patricia running and jumping across the stage of a TV show, which showed that she had no problems with walking. It's crazy to think that she got away with this scam for nearly 10 years before she was caught. But then again, Patricia pretty much did get away with it, since she basically got a slap on the wrist. She was sentenced to 12 months in prison, but suspended for 18 months, which basically means she was put on probation and asked to pay just £500 in compensation. Wow, that judge really showed her, huh? Was she a family friend or something? Did she at least send her to bed without dessert? She didn't even get a timeout. Number 2, lady calls 911 for ambulance rides. Keisha Kennedy used to call 911 endless times with fake medical emergencies just so she could enjoy the thrill of several ambulance rides. This may seem like just a harmless prank, but Keisha's calls meant that the ambulance couldn't respond to other patients in real need. Sadly, her nonsense actually resulted in someone passing away because the ambulance was occupied with her and her fake call. According to the police, Keisha called 911 over 400 times, and sometimes called multiple times in the same day. She would complain of multiple discomforts and would be taken to the hospital to get examined. When she got there, the doctors would give her a clean bill of health, send her home, and she would start the whole dance again. Keisha was arrested and pleaded guilty to charges of disrupting public services, false alarms, both felonies, and another 25 misdemeanor counts of misuse of 911 systems. And you'd think that once she was in court, that would be the end of Keisha's antics. Well, you would be wrong. In court, Keisha faked being unconscious, which had to look ridiculous. And when she was finally conscious, she claimed she didn't understand the rights read to her because she was disabled. As of the release of this video, she hasn't been sentenced yet. Clearly, there's something wrong with Keisha's wiring if she's pulling this weird stuff actually in court, as if she's got Munchausen's or something. But since someone actually lost their life due to her fraud, she's lucky she didn't get charged for that too. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay tuned right here to find out how this TV personality turned to crime. Number 1. Fake student athlete scammer. 22-year-old Xavier Dorsley thought he would make a thriving career out of being a fake student athlete, and he would have gotten away with it too if not for those pesky little things on campuses called cameras. Dorsley would approach students on campus at the University of Central Florida and tell them all about how he was a student athlete and needed help with rent and bills. He also often asked people to loan him the money, promising that he would pay it back the next day, but of course, he never did. The thing was, people often gave Dorsley money because they were sympathetic to his cause. They also had no idea that would be the last time they would be seeing their money and the fake student athlete. Unfortunately for Dorsley, his luck eventually ran out after multiple students reported similar incidents to the police, noticing that Dorsley's requests for money were suspicious. The police investigation revealed that Dorsley wasn't even a registered student at the University of Central Florida, let alone an athlete. His repeated approach and the pattern of his requests raised alarms, prompting the investigation that ultimately exposed his little scam. Dorsley was eventually tracked down through cameras and license plate readers and was taken into custody. It sounds like even though Dorsley wasn't a student at UCF, he ended up learning something there anyway, and it probably cost him just as much. They're criminals straight down to their bones. Let's dive in with number 6, a model criminal. Paulina Karina Diaz, a well-known Colombian TV presenter and model, found herself involved in a shocking crime that involved a double kidnapping. Back in 2011, she and her partner, a man who was known by the nickname La Bruja, or the Witch, were arrested by Colombia's anti-kidnapping unit. The charges leveled against them were serious and included blackmail and kidnapping. The incident unfolded when Diaz and her partner allegedly played a significant role in the abduction of businessman Hugo Lopez Moncayo and lawyer Milton Caro Villamil. Reports showed that the victims were forcefully taken from a bar located in the city of Cali, Colombia. Following the kidnapping, the perpetrators demanded an exorbitant ransom of 3 billion Colombian pesos, equivalent to roughly $733,617.60 from the families of the victims. Unfortunately, despite the paid ransom, the current whereabouts of Hugo Lopez Moncayo and Caro Villamil remain unknown. Official sources said that Diaz, utilizing her charm, meaning her obvious obviously sparkling conversation, to entice the men into a room in a nightclub, likely to just chat about politics or something, where they were held captive. It's suspected that Diaz masterminded the entire operation and orchestrated a diversion in the club to facilitate the kidnapping. Aside from the occasional kidnapping she may or may not be involved with, Diaz was also a TV presenter on a show called Guia Magazine, like you'd expect. Furthermore, she worked as a model. Interestingly, it was discovered that Diaz had been working for Channel 2 for free, a calculated move to build her fame and increase her follower count on social media websites. The kidnappings must have been just to supplement her income. Times are tough, and when you're only a TV personality and successful model, you do what you have to, like committing crimes. Number 5. Will Scam. Will Allen, a former NFL player who competed for the Miami Dolphins and New York Giants, found himself embroiled in a Ponzi scheme. Alongside his partner, Susan Daub, Allen operated a company called Capital Financial Partners in Massachusetts. Their scheme centered around enticing investors with the promise of high-interest, short-term loans for professional athletes, guaranteeing returns as high as 18%. Over approximately 3 years, Allen and Daub amassed more than $35 million from their victims. The duo engaged in collecting funds for fake loans, misrepresenting loan amounts to attract additional investors, and using new money to make payments to existing investors. The ill-gotten gains were frivolously spent, as Allen personally received $4.1 million, a portion of which, totaling $61,180, was spent at various casinos. Daub received $239,000 from the fraudulent operation. Around 40 individuals fell prey to Allen and Daub's scam. Notably, professional hockey player Jack Johnson of the Columbus Blue Jackets was among those victimized, having received the largest loan from Allen. The scheme preyed upon the circumstances faced by athletes, particularly for those guys who had recently signed lucrative contracts but hadn't received their initial payments. The short-term loans served as a way to cover their expenses until they started receiving regular paychecks. The vulnerability of these athletes, coupled with the promise of financial aid, attracted investors. It's worth noting that Allen accumulated big money during his football career, amassing over $26 million. But this paltry sum didn't stop him from resorting to illegal activities to further enrich himself, betraying the trust of both investors and fellow athletes. In November 2016, Allen and Daub pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including wire fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. They were sentenced to 6 years in prison with an additional 3 years of supervised release. The court also ordered them to pay approximately $16.8 million in restitution. He also has to keep playing for the Dolphins, which may seem excessive, but hey, you do the crime. Number 4. Homeless health. Kristina Merbabieva was the mastermind behind a massive health fraud scheme. Kristina orchestrated an operation that scammed Medicare and Medicaid out of an astonishing $146 million. She led a group of 20 individuals and 14 corporations into one of the most significant healthcare fraud cases ever seen in Brooklyn. Merbabieva and her crew targeted unsuspecting individuals, specifically seeking out the homeless on the streets. The Merbabieva crew would entice victims into their clinics, where they conducted unnecessary tests solely to rack up billing fees. These practices were then charged to government healthcare programs, siphoning taxpayer money. It was a calculated and heartless method of picking taxpayers' pockets. The audacity of their actions didn't stop there. Merbabieva, driven by an insatiable desire for the high life, splurged a whopping $3.25 million in cash on a penthouse apartment in downtown Brooklyn. The sheer extravagance of this purchase showcased her taste for luxury and excess. Luxury goods became Kristina's signature indulgence. She proudly flaunted her opulent lifestyle on social media, regularly showcasing her collection of Chanel bags, shoes, and accessories. She also bought a Miu Miu purse and a Dolce & Gabbana pouch as well. Her affinity for luxurious vacations was no secret either. When law enforcement conducted a search of her residence, they discovered shoeboxes overflowing with stacks of $100 bills, a tangible testament to the exorbitant amount of cash she'd amassed. In addition to Merbabieva's opulence, one notable figure implicated in the scheme was Dr. Robert Vaccarino, cardiologist and NYPD surgeon. He faced charges of grand larceny and was linked to the fraud an astonishing 48 times. While his defense argued that he was merely a medical provider and not the mastermind, his involvement highlights the depth of the operation. It looks like Merbabieva didn't Medicare about anyone other than herself. Number 3. Stealing the identities. Meet David Allen Knight, a software designer from South Australia. Beneath his unassuming facade lurked a cunning mastermind who orchestrated a sophisticated scam that'll make your head spin. Knight shamelessly stole the identities of children who had passed away. Armed with these stolen personas, he embarked on a daring mission to defraud Centrelink, a government welfare agency, and line his pockets with over $100,000. But Knight wasn't content with just one alias. He had an entire arsenal of them. He slipped between the names of Knight, Crafter, Newman, and Westrup. His scam started when he assumed the identity of a kid who passed away back in the 1950s. Knight manipulated the birth date information to receive double benefits from Centrelink. Knight even went the extra mile, obtaining the deceased child's birth certificate and then got a driver's license and a passport. With these fake documents in hand, he jetted off on his adventures, traveling around the world on at least 8 occasions. The Department of Foreign Affairs caught wind of something fishy when they stumbled upon a passport application under the name Robertson. Photograph featured in the application matched both Knight and his alter ego, Crafter. Alarm bells started ringing and an investigation was launched. In the courtroom drama that unfolded, prosecutors argued for severe punishment, emphasizing the deliberate and calculated nature of Knight's crimes. They painted a picture of a man on a mission, searching for identities, conveniently selecting dates of birth that coincided with his own, and skillfully evading detection. Noah Redmond, Knight's lawyer, tried to downplay the severity of his client's actions. He argued that stealing from deceased children was less serious than robbing the living. Redmond also contended that using deceased identities minimized the chances of discovery. In the end, Knight couldn't escape the weight of his crimes. He finally pleaded guilty to charges of theft and fraud. The court, fully aware of the gravity of his actions and the substantial fortune he amassed, ordered him to be locked up until his sentencing. We suppose the lawyer was right that stealing from the living is worse than stealing from the deceased, but it still feels slimy, doesn't it? Number 2. Rogue trading. Kweku Adebali, the ex-UBS trader, made waves with his involvement in one of the biggest financial scams in UK history. This wasn't your average white-collar crime. Adebali's actions caused monumental losses for the bank, and his daring maneuvers landed him behind bars. Adebali was conducting secret trades that flew under the radar for a whopping 3 years. He was like a financial ninja, skillfully hiding his actions from his UBS bosses. The potential liabilities from his rogue trades? A jaw-dropping $7 billion. That's enough to make any financial institution tremble in its boots. Adebali's thirst for success and fat bonuses pushed him over the edge. He wasn't content with playing by the rules. He wanted to be a star trader, a legend in the financial world. So he threw caution to the wind and engaged in wild gambling trades, disregarding all the safety nets designed to protect the bank. Even though Adebali raked in a tidy sum of £360,000 in salary and bonuses, his financial life was crumbling like a house of cards. He ended up losing £123,000 through risky spread betting and had to resort to payday loans just to cover his losses. The whole scheme began back in 2008. Adebali tasted success and couldn't get enough of it. He created a secret account that he called his umbrella, where he stashed his ill-gotten gains. Secretly, he reintroduced the funds back into the regular books, thinking he was invincible. But when the markets turned sour in 2011, things spiraled out of control. Desperate to recoup his losses, Adebali threw caution to the wind and made even riskier trades. It was a high-wire act with billions at stake. As the losses added up, UBS's back office accountant started questioning the anomalies in Adebali's trading activities. Faced with mounting pressure, he walked out of the bank's headquarters in September 2011 and wrote an email accepting full responsibility for his actions and the risks he had exposed UBS to. During his trial, Adebali spun the tale of being a victim of a cutthroat environment where profits were the only god. He even claimed his colleagues were in on the game. While the court acknowledged his remorse for the losses, they didn't buy his excuses completely. Adebali was convicted on 2 counts of fraud, but somehow managed to escape heavier punishment. After serving half of his relatively lenient 7-year sentence, Adebali tasted freedom once more. But that freedom was short-lived. He was suddenly deported from the UK to his birthplace Ghana in 2018. It was a shockingly abrupt departure, leaving Adebali no time to even say goodbye to loved ones. As of January 2020, Adebali has been in Ghana, where he's working towards redemption and a fresh start. He's determined to make amends and give back to the community. His ambitious plan involves revolutionizing Ghana's housing market through a cutting-edge securitization venture. With a goal to attract up to $100 million in mortgage-backed securities, he's ready to show the world that even from the depths of scandal, redemption is possible. Number 1. Embezzler at the gate. Charlotte Clifton is a seemingly ordinary mother of three from the United Kingdom. In her role as the accounts manager at County Gates Limited, a company specializing in custom gates and metalwork, Clifton held the keys to financial power. And oh, how she misused that power. Charlotte manipulated payments, siphoning tens of thousands of pounds into her own bank account. Clifton meticulously disguised fraudulent transactions to herself, making them appear as legitimate wages or payments to suppliers. The company had no idea that their trusted accounts manager was slowly bleeding them dry. The impact on County Gates Limited was devastating. The company struggled to cope with such a significant loss, and its financial stability was thrown into chaos. To make matters worse, they had considered Clifton a beloved and trusted employee. The motive behind Clifton's embezzlement became clear as the investigation unfolded. She initially started siphoning funds due to her dire financial situation, but once she got away with it, she continued taking more and more. Clifton used the money to pursue qualifications for non-surgical cosmetic procedures, fueling her aspiration to become a self-employed beautician. In addition, she indulged in lavish expenditures, treating her family to outings and even booking a trip to Disney World in the United States. County Gates Limited uncovered the deceit during a routine check of payments just before the company closed for Christmas period in 2017. They noticed that one payment had been redirected to Clifton's personal bank account instead of the intended supplier. Whoopsie. Upon further scrutiny, management discovered a total of 34 fraudulent transactions. Clifton's defense lawyer asked for a suspended sentence, highlighting her genuine remorse and the potential negative impact of imprisonment on her three children. However, the judge decided against it, and Clifton received a 12-month prison term, and efforts to reclaim the stolen money will be pursued through a Proceeds of Crime Act hearing in the future. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you'd rather have. Free Shake Shack for life or free In-N-Out for life.